It's a good day, friends, and I welcome you to Our Power is Within. I am your host, Chasmith, aka Just Chas, and I am on a mission to inspire people to take their power back and help people to realize that each and every one of us has a healer within our own self. When we create an environment that supports healing and get out of our own way, we are truly capable of healing in mind, body, and soul. Whether you've been following along this whole time or if this is your very first episode, thanks for being on this journey with me. And if you could take a minute and help me spread the message of empowerment, healing, and possibility, it would mean the world to me. Ways that you can help support this podcast are by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star rating if and only if I've earned it, or sharing your favorite episode on social media and tagging me at Our Power is Within. For this week's challenge, I think we are going to dance, because why not? My vote is a 1 song per day. Turn it up as loud as is comfortable for you and shake your little tail feathers, shake your booty, and have fun. And don't worry about how you look. Just focus on how good you feel. Moving your body to the music, allowing it to move in whatever way feels natural and good for you. And if dancing is not necessarily in your training zone right now, you can still dance sitting down or even do a visualization of dancing while listening to your favorite song. Most of all, have fun. Today's guest is Frances Goodall. Frances is a health, pleasure, and joy coach. She has a very extensive background utilizing so many different tools and modalities depending on what ways you need supported in your journey. She has over 12 years experience in coaching people through brain rewiring, amongst many other modalities. She has her own healing story that we talk about, and this conversation actually goes in so many fun directions today. We talk about everything from her recovery, the Goodall program, and brain retraining in general. We talk about how aligning to our authentic self helps us to feel well and to heal. We talk about how to recreate joy in our lives, the role that pleasure plays in our well-being, and so much more. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hey, Frances, thanks for being here with us all today, myself and everyone listening.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, what's going well for you today?
Oh, just enjoying lots of sunshine at the moment here in the UK.
Sunshine is good. Is it a rare occasion or is it quite frequently?
To be this hot, yes, and and also just to not have rain for a few days is good. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I was just reading a book and based out of the UK, and it was they painted the picture that it was quite dreary sometimes.
Yeah, it can be for sure.
Okay, so I think the way we're going to start today is I would love for, you might be a new name for a lot of people listening. And so maybe we can start by just doing a little brief intro about who you are, and you can kind of get into a little bit of your own healing story. That is what led you to where you are today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. So I'm Frances Goodall, and I am a coach. I call myself a health, pleasure, and joy coach these days. And also, I'm also a Goodall program coach as well. And I know you've recently spoken to Ashok. And I also run something called the Women's Wellness Circle, which is a community for women to gather together to offer healing tools and community to support the healing journey from chronic illness. So I had a 5-year journey of recovery from chronic fatigue that started when I was 19 and finished when I was 24. I'm now 39. And I've spent, I can go, do you want me to go more in depth into my own story and what happened, or?
So you've recovered a long time ago.
Yeah, it's quite a long time ago. Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And that's interesting because back then, 15 years ago, we just talked a little offline, and you use different various brain retraining tools to help you heal through this.
Yeah.
But back 15 years ago, nowadays brain retraining is so much more well known, but 15 years ago, no one was talking about brain retraining. No one really knew what that was. So tell us more about how, what you were going through at first, and then how you ended up discovering brain retraining and how you use that to help support you.
Yeah, so at first it was really hard. I felt really depressed. I would even just be watching daytime television. My life felt quite purposeless. I was back in my hometown with my mum, couldn't continue with my university degree. All my friends had gone off to university from my hometown in Sheffield in the UK, and I lost my uni friends because I come back home. So it was a tough time at first. Felt really lonely. But I had the year before been in Nepal and India, and I traveled the world and got quite interested and curious about spirituality and meditation and yoga. So I did think from quite early on, well, I wonder if I start to practice meditation and yoga on a daily basis, whether that can help me heal. There's someone in the UK called Fiona Agomba who had written a book on yoga for recovery from chronic fatigue. She herself had got herself, I don't think 100% well, but maybe like 80%, 90% well through yoga. So I got her book, and so I did a lot of meditation and yoga for the first year or two, learned things like alternate nostril breathing and those kind of things, and relaxation as well. I did a lot of relaxation. And I did find one time that I did this deep relaxation and then I came out of it and my symptoms had lifted so much that I started to really think, oh, okay, well, maybe if I can, deeply reset my system, that's going to help me heal. And then I think 3 years into the illness, I had like kind of actually quite a profound spiritual experience in meditation where I had a release of energy through my body. And I thought I'd cured myself through meditation of the fatigue because I felt really well for a couple of weeks, but then I crashed and really up and down for another 3 years after that. So in those last 3 years, I spent some of that time feeling pretty well or even fully well, but then to being like right back in bed and that sort of thing. So I was really extremes, ups and downs on all levels. But yeah, and then later on down that journey, I found someone called Alex Howard, who had created a clinic in London to support people to heal from chronic fatigue. He himself wrote his story in depth, and that really moved me and supported me. And I learned a bit about some of the basics of brain retraining through him and his clinic, and sort of getting out of unhelpful thought patterns about symptoms and fears and anxieties and that kind of thing. So I started to work on freeing my mind from those kind of things that I think were perpetuating the symptoms or kind of leading to me to go back to them. And then one of the other key pieces as well was that I realized that I was a big peacemaker. So I always wanted to keep the peace. I really wanted to avoid conflict, avoid anger, wouldn't speak my truth. And I realized that there was a big link between my symptoms and not speaking my truth, not being my authentic self. So once I started to learn to express myself and to deal with like little bits of potential conflict or just challenging conversations that you might have to have in life sometimes, that seemed to really make a big difference in my energy and being able to sustain my health. That would seem to be one of the final sort of pieces for me of the jigsaw. As well as really learning to pace myself, because I did have a pattern that as soon as I felt a bit better, maybe I can go out running now, maybe I can do all this stuff, maybe I can start my coaching business, whatever, and just kind of push it a bit too far too quickly. So once I learned to have that in check, and also address my peacemaker tendencies, they were the kind of final pieces that got me fully well. And then and like Ashok shared in his story as well, I felt at a moment in my journey, like towards the end, if I can keep working on this and get myself fully well, even though I keep having these crashes and it's really painful, I keep thinking I've got there and then I find out I'm back in bed again. If I can keep going and get there, then I can help other people to heal, and that will make it a worthwhile journey that I've been on with this condition. So yeah.
Completely. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I'm so curious. I would love to talk a little bit about pacing. I know that pacing is I don't know that does he use the word pacing or more like slowing down in the program?
He talks about pacing and the slow motion technique, slowing down. He talks about both. Yeah.
So pacing, when you're somebody who has gone kind of where you kind of didn't know and you kind of had these ups and downs, like you were going and then you crashed, and then you have this realization, you learn you need to pace. How does one begin to learn to distinguish when they're experiencing true fatigue, where they need to slow down and honor their body to rest, versus when it might be a learned like behavior or a response in the brain from the buildup of the fatigue?
Yeah. I mean, I do absolutely believe there can be very different kinds of fatigue, and there is some fatigues that are really inviting rest and restoring and But there are other fatigues, that are absolutely to do with the stress response, or to do with that brain pattern, or other fatigues that can be kind of more emotional, that there's something emotional going on that's not being addressed and being suppressed, and it's causing fatigue. Like for me, over the years, and even over the years since being better from chronic fatigue, if I deny that I'm angry about something, that I can sometimes find myself lying in bed until I realize, oh, there's underlying anger. And I've met other people like that as well. I'm not the only one, but it's certainly been one of my things. So, I think it's being really discerning and being curious. And I mean, I've recently had COVID, and I've had quite a lot of fatigue on and off since then. So it's been like a mini version of getting better from chronic fatigue. And to honor my fatigue and really rest, but also not to get in stress patterns about the fatigue, or just think, oh no, what if I'm going to get long COVID? If that thought comes up, retrain that thought, work with that thought, and that's not going to serve me in getting my energy and health back. So I think it's working on it on all angles, and being as discerning as you can about what's going on, and inquiring into the body, the mind, the thoughts, the emotions. Inquiring in can give clarity as to what's going on, I would say.
Okay. And so generally for you, in your experience, if you felt tired, you would just rest. You would just not get caught up in the story or begin stressing over it. You would just simply rest.
Yeah. Well, yes. I don't know. Sometimes I wouldn't rest. Sometimes I do the opposite and just keep pushing, keep doing stuff. And I think sometimes as well, the tiredness would shift very quickly. For example, when I was kind of better from chronic fatigue, but still had this thing with anger, that if I suppressed it, I started to get symptoms. So sometimes, I'd literally rest for 10 minutes and then realize I just needed to kind of like release some anger through my body in some way, maybe with movement, maybe with sounding, and then my energy would shift and my energy would just come back completely. So it depends. But other times I might, for example, with the recent COVID, I might have rest and really realized my body actually needs to rest on and off for a few hours, and that's just where I am, with a little bit of post-viral fatigue, and to honor that. So it depends, but yeah, normally I do my best to listen to my body, but it's not always possible as well. I've got a son, I've got a business, I've got things that I've got to attend at particular times, so it's not always possible to completely honor the body in that way, but at the same time, the best you can. Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I know something that a lot of people with chronic fatigue do is, I'm not sure the word, but it's like, I've heard this so many times. You kind of manage your energy units. So you're like, oh, you start getting in this pattern, or you get really used to, oh, well, I need to do this, so I'm going to not do any of this because I'm going to save my energy for that. And
Yeah.
I wonder if that's where we can really start to strengthen the neural pathways that are supporting the chronic fatigue syndrome. And it's almost, because it's almost fear-based, like you become afraid of doing things because you're afraid it's going to cause more fatigue. So
Yeah.
what would your advice be for somebody to help them get out of that pattern that they're stuck in, and to start to be able to step into trust and allow themselves to just, put a foot forward and do things more?
Yes, and there is a time for doing that. Absolutely. I have heard that sometimes from some clients and some colleagues that sort of approach has maybe been helpful for a while, to get someone out of a rut of kind of continually, say, for example, pushing too hard. And when I think back to my own recovery journey, I did something like that, where I'd like kind of also write down sort of what I was doing and like how I felt, my energy levels throughout the day. But in some ways it was quite helpful, because I'd see things like, oh, I meditated and then my energy improved by this much, and because I could see some positive effects by doing an approach kind of similar to that. But ultimately as well, I also came across the idea, who are you when you haven't got symptoms? Who are you when you don't know chronic illness? Who are you when you have no thoughts of having chronic fatigue syndrome? Like those sort of like all those kind of thoughts that you have additionally to, because you've got that label and you've developed all these extra thoughts, they can also be part of that perpetuating cycle. So yeah, absolutely, being able to get out of that cycle and get out of thinking those kind of thoughts can be helpful. But for a period, perhaps it can be helpful to get someone out of patterns of like, as soon as they've got more energy, do loads of stuff, fill up the day and pretend that nothing ever happened, forget where you were and that sort of thing, which is not great either. But at the same time, there can be, I mean, Ashok talks about this sort of, there can be over pacing where you're kind of, overly obsessive about like, oh, I've done this, so I can't do that, and this, the day becomes very regimented and kind of reduced, or underpacing when someone might need to actually calm down a little bit and kind of pace out their day a little bit better, because they're kind of filling it with too much stuff. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a fine line, it seems.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, when's enough or too much? You're kind of teetering. And I guess, and what I feel like would make sense is you almost really do have to be your own experiment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and like
Absolutely.
really try it out day to day and see what really works for you and just
Yeah.
notice. I really like you made mention about writing the journaling and writing down things you were doing and how your energy levels were through the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
That can be such a powerful tool because I feel like that could really help somebody become in tune with, because you also mentioned how when you were linking symptoms to not being your authentic self, and a lot of people are like, oh, I want to be authentic, but they don't, it's like you can become so disconnected that what is my authentic self, who is my authentic self, what am I doing and who am I being when it's actually aligned to my truth. I feel like um doing that journal could be a really good practice to help kind of start to discover that, because if you're doing certain things and you're kind of always fatigued or tired or not motivated, then maybe those are indicators that that's not lighting your cup, jazzing you up. Like maybe it's not your truth, and then you start to notice other things that really bring you joy or give you more energy or feel more zest in life. Maybe that's leading you more to that truth.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I mean that tool was just talked to me about by a psychologist at an NHS clinic in the UK. But yeah, it was helpful to see sort of what was lighting me up, what was giving me energy, what was helping my recovery journey, and that kind of thing. And yes, absolutely. In terms of the Goodall program talks a lot about re-engaging with joy as a part of the healing process, discovering your true self, discovering your authentic self, the illness being a kind of opportunity to awaken to more of who you fully are, and all of that. And I definitely experienced all of that as part of my own recovery journey and witnessed that in clients as well. And it kind of brings me on to another topic that sometimes I think the illness can be a wake up call that someone's in the wrong job, the wrong career, or they're in the wrong relationship, or maybe they need to go and live somewhere else. And it can be a wake up call for some big life changes potentially for sometimes, and sometimes not. Sometimes it's more subtle, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that so much. I literally just wrote something about this the other day, how we think we want to know the truth, but sometimes the truth comes wrapped up in a really hard package, meaning like what you just said, sometimes the truth is that you aren't healthy and this 20-year relationship isn't healthy for you, or you realize that you don't love your job and you really need to quit it, but you are the breadwinner and you don't know what else you would do. Or like you said, hey, I can't live in this area anymore, but picking up everything and moving across the country can be really hard. So sometimes the truth can be hard, and it's almost hard to sometimes be open to it, because knowing it means we might have to make hard choices or do hard things.
Absolutely, yeah. And then obviously making big life changes and things like that is hard. If you've got symptoms as well. So, but actually, if someone might need to work on their health enough to be able to then step out and actually make those changes that they might need to make the full recovery. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So you had briefly mentioned that you recently are overcoming from, or have overcome from, you got COVID,
Yeah.
and you noticed that you had some fatigue and post-viral symptoms show up. What tools have you really relied on from your, all the years of experience you have now, both in your own healing journey and as a coach, to kind of help guide you through that?
Yeah, I'm so grateful that I had so many tools. You know, if it wasn't for all those tools, I can see how people do end up with long COVID. So yeah, I was doing energy medicine through the whole experience of actually having COVID, and then also afterwards. I don't know if you know energy medicine much, like Donna Eden.
No, could you share a little bit about what that is for anyone listening?
Yeah, so it's techniques where you do things like tap on certain acupuncture points and make certain movements that can help balance your energy field, really, and support your system on an energetic level, which also ripples out to the physical and other levels to heal. So there's a couple of pioneers in that field, one in the US called Donna Eden and one in the UK called Prune Harris, who have got some incredible YouTube videos that are just available for free. So pretty much all my energy medicine I've just learned through YouTube, but it's amazing, and I do it daily, and I have done for years. But Prune Harris has got some specific ones around coronavirus and lung health and that kind of thing. So I was doing those daily while I was sick, and then also to support recovery afterwards. There's also a 5-minute daily energy routine that I've been doing every morning for several years. So that was one thing. Also some of the Gupta program tools to get out of any unhelpful thoughts around, long haul COVID or what's happening here, or that sort of thing. EFT, emotional freedom technique, to work through any fears that came up with it as well. And also some breathing practices as well. I recently got quite interested in Buteyko breathing, so I've been doing some of that for myself. One of the Gupta program coaches actually is a Buteyko breathing practitioner, Heather is, and so I've been learning a bit from her and from YouTube as well. And also one of the kind of people high up in that has some YouTube videos around coronavirus as well, and through nasal breathing and humming through our nose, we can build up more nitric oxide, I believe, and by breathing that into our lungs, apparently there's some research to suggest that can help to kill viruses. So I was doing that one as well. So yeah, they were some of the tools. And then obviously I was taking supplements, and I was also taking some herbs as well that had been recommended. So yeah.
Awesome. You said so many things I want to ask you about. One, what Buteyko breathing, could you spell that for anyone listening so I can maybe drop a
Buteyko
link for them to
breathing. Yeah,
experience it?
it's Buteyko, Buteyko breathing.
Buteyko, that is a new one I have never heard of. So I'll have to look some videos up, and unless
Yeah.
maybe you have some really great ones that I could drop the links in the show notes for anyone listening.
I'm sure I could find you a couple. Yeah,
Okay.
and just to say briefly, it's about the health benefits of continual nasal breathing. Apparently, a lot of us end up breathing in and out through our mouth, particularly when we're sleeping. So it's about the benefits of retraining ourselves to just breathe through our noses, unless we're doing a specific breath practice that might involve a bit of mouth breathing for a short period. That's a different thing. And it's also about how, if we optimize our breath, like have the most optimal, relaxed, easy breath and healthy breath, how it can support optimal health, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really believe that if you're breathing easefully, then you're kind of moving through life with ease.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're so
Yeah.
related. And now you mentioned something about humming through your nose. I've
Yeah.
never heard of this either. So is that part of this Buteyko breathing, or is this separate?
Yeah, it was just something that was mentioned on one of the videos for Buteyko breathing. Yes, and for increasing nitric oxide in the nose, which apparently can help. And I didn't look into it in depth, but apparently can help to kill viruses in the lungs. So
Oh, this is cool. I'm totally looking this up. And then the last thing is, you mentioned that for several years now, you've done a 5-minute daily energy routine, which
yeah.
it must be good if you've stuck with it that long. So is that something that's like available for anyone listening
Yeah,
online
you can
somewhere?
literally look up Donna Eden 5-minute energy routine on YouTube, or just 5-minute energy routine. You'll get other people guiding you through it. Yeah, there's just this particular
Awesome.
routine that just takes 5 minutes, helps your energies kind of cross over in the way they're meant to, and just balance and support your meridians and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's a really nice practice to do before meditation. Is what I do on a daily basis, pretty much. So yeah.
Awesome. I love it. It's something I'll also look for and drop into the show notes for everyone who's listening right now. And as far as you had these different things you use. You said you use some of the Gupta program tools and EFT to help overcome the fears or the unhelpful thoughts. Now, we're all humans. So initially, when you realized you got this, did you notice thoughts or fears creep in?
Absolutely, I did. Yeah, I did, because I guess I found it quite humbling. I guess I thought that if I got it, it would my body would just fight it off with total ease. I'm a health coach. I eat an amazing diet. I do all this energy medicine and meditation and look after my health so well. So yeah, there were definitely some like kind of fears that came up around it all to work through, and some emotions, and and some challenges to my identity as a super healthy health coach that would brush COVID off like no problem whatsoever. So it was humbling though as well. So I feel like I also had a mini kind of death and rebirth experience, which I think life invites sometimes, or I think I spoke about it as like a mini initiation to a practitioner I worked with for a moment in that time as well. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I imagine I feel, yeah, we're all humans. I feel like it's totally natural to have those initial responses. But the great thing is, like you said, having the tools and having
Yeah,
the knowledge, the awareness, because it's the knowledge that when applied can be so powerful. So it's like knowing what you knew really probably was so helpful in like noticing the fears creeping up and then being able to move away from them.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because we all know the power of kind of being in a positive state of mind to support healing, and being more in a state of kind of trust rather than fear to support the immune system and to support our health and wellness. So yeah, yeah, I'm
Awesome.
grateful, so grateful to have all the tools and amazing colleagues around me. Actually, all the Gupta program coaches were amazing too. So yeah,
Yeah, I bet it's always good to have other people who can help you kind of navigate through moments like that and
what?
stay in the right mindset.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, speaking of the Gupta program, how did you come into that program and start become like how did you become a coach for the Gupta program?
Yeah, well, I heard about Ashok through, I think, Alex Howard, who I mentioned earlier on, many, many years ago, probably about 2007, probably about when his program came out. And then I messaged him. I think, just completed a year-long training in coaching, NLP, hypnotherapy, and EFT with Alex Howard in his clinic, and just wrote to Ashok and said, could I be a coach with you? I've got this experience. And then at that point there wasn't a whole coach training, so it was more kind of me watching his program a couple of times and writing to him exactly what I'd understood around it and how I'd work with clients, that kind of thing. And I started working as a coach pretty much from there. And I think I attended a seminar or two with him as well, live thing with where he invite clients to, or participants of the program, to come and do some work together over a weekend, and then became a coach. And I haven't looked back. It's been an incredible step forward in my work. I was already doing a bit of coaching work before that, a bit of body work at that point. I guess I was in my mid-20s, I think. And so it's been a long time, and it's incredible to work with Ashok and to work with all the coaches that have more and more have come on board over the years. And yeah, it's great community and great program. So yeah.
Awesome. And you, aside from, and you, so you've been doing that for a long time then. You said you started that in your 20s and you said you're 39 now. So
Yeah.
this has been a long time.
Yeah, a really long time. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, since
What else?
2008. Since 2008, and soon after he created the program. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. What else are you offering as far as in your personal practice? Because I know we just talked about your a Gupta program coach, but people come to you for other reasons as well, aside from supporting them through the Gupta program, correct?
Yeah, they do. They do. I mean, some people have read my book. Some people come to me through the Women's Wellness Circle, which is a community I run for women. I've also recently trained to be a sex, love, and relationship coach with Layla Martin, and so I have been supporting women with their pleasure and relationships as well, one to one. So yeah, I have people come to me from in different ways, but still, most of my work is health coaching at the moment. And I'm sort of branching out into this new field as well, and seeing where that takes me, and seeing how I can blend the two, and sort of and I have been blending the two, things like speaking more to the healing power of pleasure, and as part of nervous system healing as well. So yeah, I'm just still figuring all that out, but yeah,
Yeah.
excited about the future.
Yeah. And because you had said you labeled yourself as a health, pleasure, and joy coach. And
Yeah,
so when you're okay, so I think they're super intrinsically related
yeah,
because as a woman also, I mean, a lot of times we really disconnect from that sensuous kind of sexual feminine side of ourselves. And if we talk about how symptoms can be really related to not living authentically aligned to our truth, then if we disconnect from that because of anything, any type of conditioning or just old belief systems that aren't serving us, or feelings of guilt or shame around embodying that part of ourselves, then that could also inhibit us from really experiencing our optimized well-being, because we're literally denying a part of who we are.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's very, very true. And yeah, I mean, sexual energy is like our life force energy, and many of us do carry a level of shame about it, whether that we got that from our parents or from society in some way, that can kind of shut us down on a level, and to sort of welcome that energy in us can be very nourishing for our whole systems and beings, and support. I would say support a healing journey very much, and support a living in sort of wholeness and wellness and experiencing joy and pleasure. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think it is very connected, and it's just yeah.
That's awesome. That's neat how you're just kind of merging these.
Mhm.
And what about your book? You just mentioned that some people find you through your book. Can you tell us about this book?
Yeah, I wrote a book called You Can Heal Chronic Illness, The Lotus Process, 8 Steps to Health and Happiness. So it's an 8-step journey. I do mention the Goodall program at the start as a kind of, for anyone on the recovery journey from chronic fatigue and those kind of conditions, really recommend it. I made it sort of relevant to pretty much most chronic illnesses that the steps can support you. Yeah, I could briefly go through them if you want, but some of them, yeah, you'll be familiar with. But yeah, so I talk about the power of acceptance and surrender as the first step, and then the power of belief and committing to healing, the power of developing your self-care and building up your inner resources, the power of also having a wider community and support around you as you heal, overcoming blocks to healing, and discovering your deeper purpose in life, and healing trauma, and then also maintaining health and wellness, the power, the importance of maintaining health and wellness and how to do it. So they're the kind of steps that I cover. Yeah, I wrote
So
that a few years ago.
is it a kind of designed then to be a self-guided book to help people move through healing?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and it's also got my story written in depth in there as well, my recovery story. Yeah.
Awesome. Where can they find it on Amazon
Yeah, it's
or?
just on Amazon. It's available for a reasonable price on Amazon, and yeah, paperback or or on Kindle. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
We'll have to drop a link in the show notes for that for anyone who's interested as well.
great.
Um, when you were younger, and I know a lot of us at 18 and 19 years old, we truly have no idea what we want to do when we grow up or what we're going to do the rest of our life. But like looking back in hindsight, do you feel like at that time of your life you had any idea that come to 39 this is what you would be doing, that you would write a book about health and healing and be a coach that coaches health, pleasure, and joy?
No, of course not. No, I didn't. I mean, I did at one point when I was 18. I did want to be a psychologist at one point. So,
Oh, okay. All right.
well, I don't know. Yeah, I was trying to decide between psychology and physiotherapy. So initially, I'd applied to physiotherapy, and then I did start a degree in psychology. But then I got ill. So, like, I was kind of like, yeah, interested in health and wellness and psychology and that sort of thing. But no, I would not have imagined that I'd be doing what I'm doing in the world today. And yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned along the way?
Oh, yeah, so many lessons. I would say, yeah, like things like I mentioned, kind of the importance of being your authentic self, importance of finding your own joy and purpose and pleasure in life, finding meaning in life, the importance of connection and community and love. Yeah, the power of practices like meditation for calming the mind, and also for awakening to to a different kind of state of consciousness and being and experience, of the whole of life. Power of love. Yeah, those kind of lessons, I guess. Yeah. And
Do
also
you
the sacred
Oh, go
rest.
ahead.
Sometimes we need some sacred rest, and that's okay too.
Sacred rest. What is sacred rest to you?
Yeah, I guess it's just really like, for me nowadays, it's generally around honoring my cycle. So for example, when I'm bleeding, to like have as much rest time as I possibly can to really honor like the rhythm. And I think as women, maybe we feel like we should be like men, or we don't want to feel like we're less than in any way because of cycles and periods. So sometimes to push on, but actually I think it's really helpful for us to honor, for example, our cycles as women, and that rest at that time of the month, I think is really important. But maybe, if you're on a healing journey, to have some deep rest. Things like yoga nidras can be helpful, or even just doing nothing but letting yourself just rest, whether that's lying on a blanket outside on some grass, or having a rest in your bed, whatever, that can be a beautiful part of being human, as well as doing and achieving and being out in the world and connecting and all those other beautiful parts of being alive and experiencing life. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the rest and connecting it to the moon cycle, because I know something I learned a long time ago, and I remember being that girl like you just described, where I thought I needed to be able to just push through it and have all the energy still, and I needed to still go to the gym and hit it hard and do all these things. And after learning about how it's like a really nice way to honor ourselves and actually go inward and have that time for reflection and like honestly just allow yourself that rest, realizing how much we're releasing, I really shifted my mindset about it. And now it's I really now I'm like, oh great, so that's going to be a rest day. I'm not, yes, I'll go on a walk on the beach, but I'm definitely not going to go and push at the gym and do all these things. It's more like, nope, I get to just kind of take it slow today and hang out and be with myself. And it's been a really nice transition.
No, and it's beautiful. And I think as well, when you do actually do that, and like, really maybe even experience like dropping into your body, into your womb space. My experience is that there's like such a deep sort of sense of peace and serenity that can come at that time of the month. And it just feels so natural to do that, actually, rather than to, yeah, exactly, like push on and be going to the gym or trying to go for a run or trying to have a full day of work. I mean, I know it's difficult if someone's not, say, self-employed and can sort of schedule out, because I often schedule out time. Like, I don't allow clients to book when I'm probably due on my period, which I hope it follows the rhythm. But yeah, so yeah, I think it's such an important time of the month to honor, and it can be very powerful and healing and enlightening, really, to really connect in and be with our bodies and be with that flow and cycle.
Yeah, it makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
As a coach, if you have a client and they're in their, somewhere in the middle of their journey through chronic pain and illness, and they are struggling with finding their joy, they just don't, maybe they don't have hobbies, maybe they just have been sick for so long that their life got so small that they stopped doing all things. If they didn't know where to begin, do you have how would you give them advice? What suggestions would you give for somebody who really feels super out of tune with their joy and wants to discover it again?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, probably find out from them, like, where did you find your joy in the past? What are the things you did enjoy? I mean, sometimes that might bring up, but I can't do those things now. But maybe get them to think a bit deeper. There might be some things they can do, or they might be able to do a taste of that, or they might be able to visualize themselves doing that in the future, getting healthy enough to do the things that brought them joy. And but also, suggesting things like, well, what about something creative? Would you explore some colouring in, or some art, or some writing? Could you explore gently moving your body and doing some yoga? Could you get out to trees and experience nature? Kind of really tapping into sort of those things that generally as humans might be a thread of joy. Could you put some music on and really gently dance to it? Or maybe you're well enough to dance more fully to it. So just those kind of things, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, those are great starting points, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how about maintaining health and wellness? I know that's one of the steps in your book.
Yes.
I think that's a big thing for a lot of us, is we go through this brain retraining journey, and we have these great tools that help us kind of start getting out of the chronic pain or illness, but a lot of times we still lack those fundamental tools to move back into life in a way that supports sustained health and well-being. So how would you coach or help somebody what kind of steps would you, teach them to take in terms of maintaining that health and well-being?
Yeah, to keep up all the self-care, or at least a thread of it. Might not need to be doing. I mean, for example, sort of times in my own recovery journey, I was meditating for things like 4 hours a day. Might not need to be doing that much meditation, but to keep up a thread of daily practice, of daily, in the morning, doing some meditation, perhaps using some other tools. So to keep up that, but also to transition back into sort of work and full life, sort of step by step, not to rush it all. So the spaces for self-care, for balance in life, but also to be aware of those patterns, to be aware of the parts that might come up as you start to have your health and energy back. Oh, now I've got my energy, so I can go and help this person and this person, or I can achieve this and achieve this, and not just to be aware of those parts. They can come back in a balanced way, and that's great, or they could come back in an unbalanced way, and they might need some tending to in a deeper way. There may be some deeper roots, some deeper healing of childhood wounds, those kind of things that can kind of be beneath some of those patterns of overgiving or overdoing to prove your worth, that sort of thing. So there may be, and also as I heard on your interview with Ashok as well, talking about that actually sometimes the trauma work is better later on in the journey, perhaps even once they're fully well, or on that journey towards being fully well. It might be a time to address those kind of deeper roots that can cause some unhealthy patterns that could then, if they were left unattended to, lead to a dip of symptoms and having to kind of go forwards ultimately again. But does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, we want to make sure that we don't, drift back into those old patterns that maybe got us or led us down the path of dis-ease to begin with.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, okay, so if there is somebody who's kind of at that place and they discover that they might need to go back and do some heal some childhood wounds to help ensure that they don't keep repeating these old patterns, do you help them through that, or is that a point where you might outsource them to a different type of coach that would help them?
I do actually these days, because I've been in this field for so long now, and I've trained in things like internal family systems in recent years, EFT for years and years and years. So, for example, internal family systems, EFT work, and sometimes using some of the program tools can be great tools to work with the inner child, to do some deeper healing, to support that part, to feel loved, to feel safe, to feel whatever it needs to feel so that it can relax, so that it can be more an integrated part of the whole system and not be kind of, creating these patterns of overdoing or overgiving and that kind of thing. So, yes, I do that kind of work now. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. You mentioned that similar to Ashok's experience, as you were recovering from being sick, you made mention that you knew that you would want to do this work because at least if you could help other people, that it would all be, it would have been worth it in a sense, made more sense to go through it.
Yes.
So I guess tying into that, is that, maybe that is, or maybe it's not, but what is the biggest gift that has come through the 5 to 6 years that you went through of going through chronic fatigue syndrome?
Yeah, the biggest gift I would say has been a sense of purpose, real sense of purpose in my work in the world. Finding a way of making a living that also feels deeply meaningful and purposeful to me has been amazing. And then also personally, really following my authentic, true self, developing really loving connections in my life and friendships and that kind of thing, and really being in tune with myself, and I just feel like it's affected all areas of my life really, and in positive ways ultimately, and ultimately I'm grateful that I went through that experience, even though at times it was really hard, and even years later I'd still sometimes be grieving for like how hard it was. Like it took me a while to process in a way that I'd had that experience, and then even in my early 30s, I think it was, or mid 30s, I sort of felt like I was I had all these friends that were in their 20s, and I sort of realized there was a part of me that was trying to reclaim those years and kind of enjoy those years again by kind of hanging out with much younger people and kind of having the kind of like fun and, I don't know, going out dancing and stuff like that. Which was interesting. I sort of realized that was, yeah. So, yeah, there's been so many blessings and so many learnings that I'm so grateful for from that whole experience. And the way it shaped my life really since. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome and beautiful. I hear that so often. I also wouldn't, I mean, I just, as much as I have gotten and sometimes still get so frustrated over anything I've ever felt physically in my own healing journey and the chronic stuff I've dealt with, I also couldn't imagine trading it in for the world, because it, I don't know, it's like part of, it's such a, it's not the illness or anything like that is not a part of who I am. That is not at all a part of who I am, but who I've become in my, with my mind to like overcome and get beyond that. I feel like so blessed. I feel like I have this awareness and these tools now that I feel so blessed and lucky to have, you know? And so I just couldn't imagine not having the tools and the knowledge and awareness that I have today. And I feel like everything I've been through got me there.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, me
So,
too. Yeah.
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 Um, what is your go-to to, like, now you already kind of, it sounds like you're really living aligned to your truth now, really understanding what's authentic for you. But for somebody out there who just isn't sure and they're like, I don't know, how do I know? How do I know when I'm actually living authentically, or how do I get there? Do you have tools in your toolbox that you feel were really helpful um to discover that side of self, and that you could share with anyone listening who wants to explore that deeper?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel there's so many different ways to tap into our authentic truth, our authentic self. Yeah, I mean, anything that kind of invites you to look inside a little bit deeper, to express and feel your emotions, what's really truly going on in your body, and getting out of the mind and unhelpful thought patterns. Um, and there are so many different ways in, really, and so many different things have helped me in different ways. So I think, and I also think we're all individual, and I mean, that's one of the things that's great about the Goodall program, is it does include quite a bit large toolkit and quite different ways of working, you know, in terms of the different brain retraining tools and the parts work and meditation and nostril breathing. You know, lots of different things are covered there, so that's great. So I definitely would recommend the Goodall program if anyone's on the healing journey from chronic illness. I personally, I'd also recommend things like energy medicine. You know, that has been really wonderful for me. Anything, well, a lot of practices that work with the breath, exploring different kind of breath practices can be really powerful. Emotional freedom technique has been amazing for me, the tapping, and also amazing for many of my clients. Internal family systems work, a kind of another way of working with parts and Ashok covers that, but also is kind of works well together with the way Ashok works with parts, and is amazing, is profound work of kind of really working with the internal system and understanding what's going on in terms of the different like protector parts that we can hold, and the exiles, which are the traumatized parts or beneath those protector parts, and finding a compassionate and kind way to work with all those different parts and to bring more integration and harmony into the system. And yeah, and I believe that the more we kind of work on ourselves, the more our authentic self will start to shine. And as well, the more we can hang out with and are surrounded by authentic people who have done a level of work on themselves, or maybe are naturally like that anyway, naturally in touch with their authentic self and who they truly are. Because I do believe the right community is also really important as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was actually going to be my next question, was about community, because I know there's a lot of people out there that can feel, this journey can feel really isolating, and you can feel really alone sometimes. You know, you have family and friends who just don't get it and they don't understand, especially when you start doing the inner healing work and it, you know, none of it makes sense to them. And it's hard sometimes when you're navigating this all and feeling alone. So do you have suggestions for how people can create connections and community to help feel supported? Because there's Facebook groups out there on specific illnesses, but they can become rather toxic and kind of getting fixated on the identity of being sick and the symptoms and the negative parts themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was in a local ME group for a while, for example, and they're not, not. Although in some ways it was supportive to have people who kind of got that I was sick, and that was nice. But then, like, I was told by the person who ran it that I could expect to have it for the rest of my life, and I'm 19. I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to leave this group. So yeah, I mean, I created a community called the Women's Wellness Circle, which is an online community to support women on the healing journey, where we do share healing tools, where we gather in community, where we talk about things like the power of working with our breath, the power of acceptance, the power of compassion. We have different coaching themes. So like a kind of positively focused community can be supportive. I also run coaching groups, small coaching groups for women as well, where can coach specifically around the Goodall program or bring in other tools, have one-to-one coaching in a group experience, but also bond with other women. And that, for some women, that has been like one of the most profound things they've done to get themselves fully well. And I think for some people, it's like a particular step on the journey as well to kind of be in communities like that and to feel seen, to feel held, to feel supported. And there's something about that process of sort of stepping back into the world, but in a kind of safe way and like one step at a time. Somehow I think it's been really helpful. And then of course there's the Goodall program, and there's the Goodall forum on Facebook, which has been really supportive for many people in terms of community and support as well. So it's finding those pockets of support that are really supportive. Maybe there's local friends you've got, maybe there's local meditation groups or yoga groups you can go to that are around people, that you're around people that are on kind of at least some kind of path. They don't have to be healing chronic illness, but they kind of get what you're doing to help yourself heal chronic illness, and they understand it, and they or they relate to it. So just finding the right kind of communities. I mean, in the UK, there's me and many of my friends love a festival called Buddha Fields, which is just filled with meditation workshops, yoga workshops, pleasure workshops, healing tents, and it's a lovely community. Finding what sparks your joy, and in terms of connections and community. And yeah, it is difficult that often family don't get it, and I found that some family later on down the line follow along and get interested in meditation and that kind of thing, but at first are quite resistant to it. But yeah, finding communities of people where you can, who are like-minded and can see the path you're on and understand your journey of finding out more about who you truly are, and what's going to support your journey to health, wellness, and happiness.
Thank you for sharing. How can people connect with you and learn more about your offerings like this Woman Circle and your small group coaching?
Yeah, so I mean, you can email me at my name, francis@francisgoodall.com. I've got a website, francisgoodall.com. I've also got an Instagram, which is just my name as well, Francis Goodall, and on Facebook. And the Women's Wellness Circle is just womenswellnesscircle.com, so you can look at the website there. And there's a contact form on there if you wanted to get in touch. And yeah, so there's some other ways you can get in touch.
Awesome. So Women's Wellness Circle actually has its own website.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, I'll have links for all that in the show notes.
Yeah. And I'm also on the Goodall program coach page, of course, as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah.
And after going through your own healing journey, still being on this journey that we call life, having 15 plus years experience in the health coaching practice, what do you have an overall message that you want to share with the world? Like, what is just the message that you feel inspired or called to share with people?
That as human beings, we have a vast potential to experience joy, to experience compassion, to feel and experience a sense of meaning and purpose in life, and to keep going, to keep planting seeds in yourself that support you in growing in the qualities you most want to grow in yourself, whether that is inner peace or more joy, more compassion for yourself and others, more sense of meaning and purpose. So yeah, I really believe we all have a potential to have a deeper and fuller experience of life. Yeah, and I guess my journey, although I'm not a Buddhist anymore, I was a Buddhist for my 20s as well, and that also supported my journey of healing chronic illness as well. And I guess I do like the Buddhist analogy, which is why I used it in my book, actually, of the lotus flower, that that we can be this full blooming lotus flower, and we might experience being in the mud, but we have this seed of potential to be the full blooming lotus flower.
I love it. Thank you for sharing. Do you have any final thoughts or just anything that maybe I didn't ask you that you feel compelled to share with anyone listening?
There's one thing that I heard on the healing journey from chronic illness that was shared to me by an EFT practitioner, that when we're looking at healing, that we might have the 3 P's of illness, that we might have predisposing factors that we need to look at. So that could be kind of it could be ancestral healing, it could be inner child healing, it could be those kind of deeper roots that might need to be looked at, and deeper patterning from childhood, that sort of thing. But we also have precipitating factors. So what was happening around the time one first got symptoms? What was the final straw that broke the camel's back? So we might need to do some work on that level to support ourselves to fully heal. And then also perpetuating. So the kind of thoughts about illness, getting stuck in that cycle, addressing that level as well. So just to really mention that those 3 levels may need to be addressed to have a full and complete healing from chronic illness.
I love that. Yeah, that's so good. Because we can sometimes just like get so fixated on like one of those P's.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
yeah, I guess, yeah, I think that's a great advice, because if at some point you're focusing on one and not really having the results you're looking for, it might be time to expand your horizons and kind of look into the other areas.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here on the show today and sharing your wisdom and the experience that, you've learned along the way with everyone who's listening. And yeah, I just really appreciated having this chat with you.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you for creating this show and spreading inspiration into the world around healing and awakening. It's wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you. That is a wrap. Thank you once again for being here. I hope that today's discussion sparked something inside for you. Now, go dance, go play, have fun, be silly, be you, and make this week great.